This is the Toyota Early Edition. Phil Rockner and Simon Beaumont here, where just 24 hours ago we saw 1,500 age groupers and professionals going around the streets of Busselton for Ironman Western Australia.
One of the biggest Ironman fields we've ever seen in Australia. This is a great piece of triathlon real estate, Phil. One of the best in the country, maybe in the world.
And the race was dominated by the Europeans, with Dennis Chevreau winning the men's and also Britta Martin taking out the women's.
High drama in the age groups and the pros.
We're going to take a look at how the day unfolded. Well, Simon, the men's race was an interesting one. We had a packed field, lots of pros, and it certainly went a way that I don't think I would have looked at.
Well, that's right. You saw the two guys get off the front in Chevreau and Fattel. Not often Fattel gets beaten out of the water. And so Clayton, as we knew, drove the first part of the bike, didn't he?
He did, and a 6-second gap out of the water. Chevreau picks him up on the bike. The two Frenchmen then go super hard to crack the field, which they did, and then they get off the front. Guillaume did have a little bit of trouble at 160, but it was Chevreau on the bike.
It sure was, and I guess Kona eventually caught up with the young Frenchman where he picked up 10th. But that pack, Phil, which was the story of the bike, where all the big hitting Australian men, that did a lot of damage to some guys, I think, and that's why we saw some of the Australian pros fall off the pace a little.
Well, the marathon turned out to be 4 versus 1. There were 4 guys chasing, and again, it was Chevreau out in front. The 4 guys, David Dello was included, Joe Gambles was there, and we'll talk about those in just a moment, but they didn't do the job in the end, and it was Chevreau who just continued to increase his pace and win the day.
And I think we all thought that maybe the big hitter runners would catch up with Chevreau. He's a minute and a half out in front. But if you look back at the day, Phil, first out of the water, first off the bike, and he just built on it from there, didn't he? He was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great job by the Frenchman and a great victory. Well, in the women's event, Simon, though, it was a different story too. We had Liz Blatchford out in front early. 2 drafting penalties kind of fixed her up for time and also stopped her charge.
Yeah, it did indeed. So then we saw Maureen Hoof, who is just such a strong bike rider, just try and power and get as big a lead as she can. But ultimately, a bit like the men's race, Phil, it came down to the marathon.
That's right. She got deep, Maureen Hoof, but she couldn't hold off the charge of Britta Martin. And of course, she's a former winner here, and she knew exactly what to do to get the job done, and she did that with a scorching marathon.
She sure did, and that was an amazing run. And now she's now a 2-time champion with a new course record.
And some wonderful celebrations at the finish line as she did cross as the champion. And Simon, some of the pros had a tough day as well. It wasn't all smooth sailing.
Huge male pro field, huge female pro field, very international flavour, but yeah, tough day for a lot of them.
You're absolutely right, Simon. In an Ironman, anything can happen in a long day.
Sure can, and that big pack in the boys' race did all sorts of damage to some of those big hitter pros. A lot of people had some stories to tell.
Well, the big one was Joe Gambles too. He was a race favourite coming in, and halfway through the marathon, he held across at me. He was having foot issues, and that actually was ultimately his demise.
Bit of Kona feet, maybe. What about in the women's race?
Well, Yvonne van Vlerken came launching into the roundabout like she was a downhill skier, slid across and took a stack. She then took another one in the out on the course, so she had a very tough day as well.
She was. She's trying to ride that bike course hard, and as we said before, Lizzie Blatchford with a couple of drafting penalties, so it was all happening out there.
Absolutely. It was a tough day for some of our professionals.
Another one of the big names in the field is Jason Shortis. It didn't go to plan for Jason in his final Ironman, his 83rd Ironman, but he got there in the end, didn't he? Yeah,
look, he's been an enduring champion. He's won in Busselton a couple of times. He's been a guy who's always given 100% when he races.
The crowd loved him. We saw some amazing emotional scenes, not only with the crowd, but also with his dad and with his family who are at the finish line.
Look, this place means a lot to him, and he means a lot to the sport after being such a warrior for so many years. Well, that's all we've got time for this, the last episode of the Toyota Early Edition. Thanks to you, Simon Beaumont, for your work. Thanks to our crew as well. And thanks also to Toyota. This has been the Toyota Early Edition.